Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, and live on, of course, Bucs Report and host of the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6 on WTAN 106.1 FM and 1340 AM. As the breaking news today, Ian Rappaport reports of the NFL Network that Desean Jackson wants to be traded. We talked about this yesterday on the Sports Web. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, host of the Sports Web on Saturday afternoons on from 3 to 6. So, with that being said, am I surprised by this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not surprised by this. I think it should happen, especially if you can get something for him in the way of a corner. If the Arizona Cardinals are still willing to trade Patrick Peterson, then this would be a ideal situation for you to trade Jackson. I think from the standpoint of where the Buccaneers are going at this point, the future is Chris Godwin. Make no mistake about it. He is the future of this team. And if you feel like he's going to be the future going forward, and you're not able to get him the ball deep, which is what we talked about with Jameis Winston and his inability with his deep ball accuracy. I don't see why you wouldn't make the trade. Of course, you're not going to trade him for nothing. You're going to get value for him. You need defense. You need a defensive corner. If there's a corner out there, I suggested to the Philadelphia Eagles for Ronald Darby. Now, I know that's crazy, but as far as talent-wise, Darby is what the Buccaneers are looking for. He's a talent at cornerback. The problem is his relationship with Jameis Winston in the offseason. Would the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as an organization, make that move? I'm not sure, but this will be something that we'll have to watch, and I think it's going to be something that in the game and the last couple of games, you could see that Jackson has been upset and disappointed with the style of the Buccaneer offense and where they've gone, because they haven't been able to get him the deep ball. And on top of that, the coaching staff as a whole hasn't been able to find ways to get Jackson in space. He has a touchdown last week on the end around, but they haven't done more of that. And I think the offense is more predicated to Jameis Winston with Adam Humphries and Chris Godwin and Cameron Brate. So if you don't know what we're watching right now, you're watching the Sports Web live from Countryside. We're not at One Buccaneer Place today, but in a couple of weeks we will be at One Buccaneer Place. And most likely we will be out at the stadium. Again, I'm your host of the Sports Web on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6 on the Tan Talk Sports Network, 106.1 FM and 1340 AM. So let's go ahead. Let's take some questions here. He wants to be traded because Winston can't hit him in stride. I definitely think that's that's the whole point of this, is that the two things that we talked about with Jameis Winston coming into this year was the fact that he had to improve on two things: deep ball accuracy and turnover situation. Now, if he didn't improve on those things, it would hurt the Bucs in the long run. And with Jackson, and Keith Larson mentioned it yesterday, a Bucs report, that when Jackson came into the league, offensive coordinators did other things than fly routes. They did screens, you did slants, you did things to get him open. He's a speed player. He's a space player. You have to get him space in order for him to be effective. And look, I think he's in a good offense because you have Mike Evans. So if you're doubling on Mike Evans, then you have to give him single coverage. It's just the inability of Winston to find him, and also the inability of this offense and this organization to really find a way to get him the ball. So, again, we're live on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake of the Sports Web, WTAN 106.1 FM and 1340 AM. Good morning, good Sunday morning, good afternoon. It is a beautiful day out here in Countryside. So let's go ahead and take some more questions. Let's see. Picks and Desean, we can get Peterson. I think it's possible, but is it a case of where the organization and the Glazers, if they feel like Jason Light and Dirk Cutter are on the hot seat, are they going to sign off on a big trade? Are you going to trade a first and second round pick if you don't feel like these gentlemen are going to be a part of your organization. Again, things have to change, but if the Arizona Cardinals are willing to listen and Patrick Peterson is still on the trading block, I'd definitely give Arizona a call. And with Jason Light being familiar with that front office, I think it's certainly possible at this point. So let's see. Let's take some more questions. Bench Winston. Billy, look, they're not going to bench Winston. Winston going forward at this point is the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've been through this. Let's see. Our offense will be okay with Desean, but adding Patrick Peterson helps our defense so much. Absolutely. Absolutely helps the defense a lot. You have to get a player in this secondary that has some experience. If Patrick Peterson were the player, plus the salaries. Guys, think about this. The big-time salary that Desean Jackson is making, is he really a part of the Buccaneers' plans? I don't think so. I don't think he is. I think he's a player that eventually will decline. Now, with looking at his play on the field, the speed is still there. The explosiveness is still there, but you have to find a way to get him the ball. And if you're not doing that on a consistent basis, then it's not going to work out for this offense. And I tell you right now, I'm a Florida State fan. When the rumors came out about Jimbo Fisher not necessarily wanting to be with the Florida State Seminoles, get rid of him. I mean, do you want that on your team? I get it that Jackson is a very talented player, but do you want that on your team going forward? I'm not sure. So let's take some more questions here on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake, of the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6 on WTAN, 106.1 FM, and 1340 AM. Remember, live remote at Ferg's, November 10th, Bucs Report, Sports Web Live. Guys, join us. I love the response right now. Tony Rossi says D-Jacks to the Eagles. Definitely that would be a fit. You look at what they have, how their offense has somewhat struggled. You don't have a deep threat. You have Alshon Jeffrey. Being Jackson has been with Philly before, it's certainly possible. But what is Philly going to give up? You look at the secondary. Is it going to be Ronald Darby? Ronald Darby has a relationship with Jameis Winston. If the organization feels like those two players can coincide together and that Darby is going to be a highly productive player, then maybe you see that happening at this point. Let's see. What else do we got? Winston is the best option. I absolutely agree with that. I think we've talked about this before with Ryan Fitzpatrick being a backup quarterback, and the reason why he is a backup quarterback, he played well in his time for the first two games. Didn't play a great first half versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Second half played better. And then against the Chicago Bears, 9 for 18. Not a very good game at all. So in saying that, you know, coming into the year, look, the Buccaneer organization, they understood what the situation was. Winston was going to be suspended for the first 3 games of the year. He's your quarterback going forward. He has things that he has to work on his game, but it's also the offensive coordinator. It's Dirk Cutter's job to find a way to get Jackson the ball in space, and they haven't done that. So final score, Peter. I really wasn't ready to give a final score, but I'll tell you what. I'll go with, let's go 31-27 Tampa Bay this day. And just to give you some pre-game thoughts here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Defensively, number one, you have to slow down A.J. Green. You may have to bracket coverage, so let Taj Boyd, let the other weapons on the Cincinnati Bengals beat you. Number two, inside with Andrew Billings and Geno Atkins. The offensive line has to do a good job today as somebody honks at us live here on Bucs Report. So they're definitely going to have to do a good job of protecting Winston. And of course, I think that not only are you going to have to protect Winston, but you're going to have balance to this offense. They haven't been able to establish it with that secondary. If you can establish the run game, maybe you have opportunities to go down the field to Jackson, because this Cincinnati Bengal defense is very questionable this year. So those are my 3 points. And just getting back to the story here, because we're live from Countryside here on this early Sunday morning. What better way to spend it with you on Bucs Report? I'm your host, Peter Blake of the Sports Web, WTAN, 106.1 FM and 1340 AM. We'll take some more questions as the response. Trade Desean Jackson to the Texans for Clowney. I don't see that happening. I don't think Clowney is going to be on. Why would the Texans do that? I mean, yes, you're missing Will Fuller, but are they going to trade a player that is only 1 year away from going to free agency? I'm not sure about that, Corey. Let's see. Marcus says Winston hit all his targets high, leaves them targets to get hurt. I agree. He has to work on that deep ball accuracy, has to work in accuracy altogether. Should we trade him, Anwar? Yes. You should trade a player that wants to be traded, because why do you want somebody that's partially invested in your team? And if he's partially invested in his team and he's a problem and he could be given the locker room problem, and again, I don't know if that's what he's doing in that locker room, but if he is and he is becoming a problem, then I think maybe you're going to have to consider trading him. Let's see. Need a good running back in corners. Absolutely. Somebody mentioned A.J. Boye from the Jacksonville Jaguars on this Bucs report. I think it's certainly possible. You look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the problems that they've had in their secondary, maybe a change of scenery, plus the salaries kind of match up to a certain degree. And that's what you have to worry about here. Somebody's going to have to take on his salary. And then on top of it, you're going to have to exchange salaries because the Buccaneers don't have a lot of salary cap room. I think they're about $8 million at this point. So you're going to have to figure out a way to get rid of not only Jackson, but maybe another player at this point. Corey says 37-27 over the Bengals. Cordell says Winston's been in the league how long, but you all keep saying he's got a lot more to learn. What is it that I see? 3 sacks a day with Winston, 17 for 24 with Jameis with 2 interceptions. You know, Cordell, you make a good point. I get it that Winston's development hasn't necessarily shown on film. He's definitely got a lot of things to work on. But with saying that about Winston, here's a quarterback that threw for nearly 400 yards a couple weeks ago versus the Falcons. He did throw 2 interceptions, but if you don't have a quarterback like Winston in this offense, you have no chance. You look at last week, 2 critical interceptions, what we talked about on the sports web. You can't throw in double coverage. When you have Howard open, you have to throw over that linebacker. And then on top of it, if a receiver is not running the right route and you're bringing him in the area where the defender is, then some bad things are going to happen. So it's not always on Winston. I think we have to stop doing that and saying it's all on Jameis Winston, that Jameis Winston has to win games. It's on this offensive coaching staff. It's on this offensive line. They have to put a better game plan together. You have to become balanced. You cannot be an offense that depends on a quarterback to throw 50 to 60 times a game. It's not going to work out for you. The good teams can run the ball. In November, we're getting down to those months where it gets colder. You have to play defense, and you have to run the ball. And the Buccaneers last week, I think, improved defensively. They have to show something today with the running game. Let's see. Trade Desean back to the Skins, get a pick. And Norman, is Norman the answer? I mean, those would match up. Norman has had his struggles himself. So, I mean, that's definitely an interesting thing. I put my faith in Jason Light, and I think he'll do the right thing by the organization. If he feels like Jackson is a hindrance to what they're doing overall going forward, then I believe he'll be able to get him and get the value. But I go back to the whole story. Desean Jackson, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, has requested a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at this point. So that's what we're doing here on the sports web. Desean is expendable. Trade for an experienced secondary defender. I believe that. What can Ryan Griffin bring to the table? Tony, let's not find out, because if we have to find out, then both of those quarterbacks go down at this point. I'm sick of Winston getting blamed for the team's issues. Our offense hasn't been that bad. It's the defense. This has cost us games. It has cost you games. It's absolutely cost you games because of the defense and the miscues and play calling and accountability on defense. And I think you showed last week what they could be, how they could be aggressive. But, of course, you've lost Quan Alexander for the year with the torn ACL. You're waiting for Kendall Beckwith to get back in the fold. You picked up Keith Mentor this week, who has some experience, or Kevin Mentor, excuse me, not Keith Mentor. So we're going to see what happens today with this team. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Live here from Countryside, I'm your host, Peter Blake of the Sports Web. the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6 on WTAN 106.1 FM and 1340 AM. Our line has not dominated. It's just Winston, Smith, Marpet. Where is Kappa? Kappa is once again inactive. He's a young player. They drafted him high, but he also came out of Division III school, so he's going to have some work to do at this point. It's going to be Caleb Beninock, who has absolutely struggled on this team this year. Let's see. Get Peterson from Arizona for Jackson. That has been a popular thing and a popular rumor, but Patrick Peterson coming out this week and saying in so many words, I'm committed to the Arizona Cardinals and I want to continue to be with the Arizona Cardinals. Take it for whatever it is. We have the #1 offense in the league with no running game and no defense. Absolutely correct. I mean, look, if you have a quarterback that's throwing 52 times, don't you think there's going to be some type of interceptions? Don't you think there's going to be some plays where, he's going to throw those interceptions? And I get it, he can, but you set yourself up more. It's like a high percentage shot in basketball. You get closer to the basket, you're able to make it. And that's the key. So, weather report in Cincinnati. Wind is supposed to be a factor. It's supposed to be about 35 degrees. So if that's true, then once again, it's got to be Peyton Barber. It's got to be Ronald Jones. And they have to commit to the running game, as I talked about before with this team. To me, running game is like a relationship, right? You have to commit to it. You have to put your effort into it. If you put your effort into it, then you make those linebackers commit. And once those linebackers commit up to that running game, then big things can happen because they have to respect you one-on-one coverage. And once you got the defense, then there you go. There's your relationship. All right, let's see. You have to set up the pass with the run. Absolutely. Absolutely. Agree with that. Best scenario for the Bucs is to hash things out with D-Jax and patch it up. If they're able to patch it up, then yeah. But if he's discontent in that locker room and it's causing a problem, it's causing a problem in offense, and I'm not saying he's giving up on routes, but I mean, you can look on film. Maybe there is something to that. There is some frustration. Jackson wants to win. And let's not fool ourselves here, guys. Jackson has always had some type of attitude problem. With a player like Jackson, you get a superstar that can do many things, but you also get the diva aspect of it all. So the O-line needs to commit to opening holes. I like to see more play action today. I would like to see more play action today too. But in order to create that play action, again, you have to have the commitment to the run game. All right. Let's see. At this point, I'll take Josh Norman and give the Skins crybaby Jackson. Yeah, I mean, and that's certainly a possibility. Again, I think Norman's had his problems, and you have to figure out what Norman is. Is he a player that works in a system because he played so well with the Carolina Panthers? Or is he a guy that is basically not in the right system? Maybe he's a player the Bucs look at. Carl Nassib has shown us more so far. Absolutely, he has. In fact, I commented to Leo Haggerty of Night Sports Productions in the press box last week that he actually covered the running back better than Quan Alexander did all year long. But Quan Alexander being out is going to be an issue for this team that you're going to have to watch today. That's why Joe Mixon may go off. Hopefully these linebackers, but in saying that, maybe they shift Levante David to the middle linebacking spot. So we'll see what happens. D-Jax really doesn't like Winston. Well, look, when Jackson was being recruited, the story around the NFL was that Jackson came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of Winston, and now I guess that's changed. I absolutely agree. Winston has to hit Jackson, absolutely. Let's see. Bring Cam Newton down. That's not going to happen. Do we think Bay is a bust? Look at D. James playing. Derwin James. I'm not ready to say somebody's a bust at this point because simply we haven't seen enough of a body of work. Let's go ahead and judge for ourselves in 2 or 3 years and see where he's at. That's right. Adarius Taylor is the Mike linebacker until Beckwith comes back, and Taylor has played well to a certain degree. So, yeah, absolutely. Somebody says get rid of Winston. I don't think the Bucs are going to do that at this point. They're going to evaluate, again, his body of work. I mean, this is what it's all about. It's about body of work, what you put on film. It's his 4th year in this system. He definitely has to be more productive. We talked about it. He can't turn over the ball, but here's a player that in his first 2 years of his NFL career threw for 4,000 yards, the only NFL quarterback in NFL history. So Desean and picks for Ramsey. I would like that, John, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. And you have to think about this for a minute. Are the Jacksonville Jaguars going to be that desperate to sign Jackson? Or are they going to take him on and trade a young player like a Ramsey? I don't think so. Maybe A.J. Boye. Maybe that's the player. They will draw double teams, which means somebody else should be making plays. I agree. Somebody has to step up on this team. And once again, Gerald McCoy is going to be inactive. Vinny Curry is going to be inactive. So guys like Carl Nassib have to step up. And also William Golston, they had 5 sacks last week. What do you think we should do? Anwar, I think we should trade Jackson if he wants to be traded and you can get value for him. If not, then he has to stay put. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have all the leverage. The problem with keeping a player like Jackson on your team is maybe it becomes something of a dividing factor in that locker room. So I don't drink, man. I guess somebody is calling out somebody else. We gave Jackson another shot after his legal trouble just for him to want to walk out. Shows us a lot about his character and loyalty we can do without him. Well, I mean, I think, Jason, that the Bucs are looking at that situation, and this is the reason why you draft Chris Godwin in the first place as a third-round pick. And look, when Jason Light is going to draft a premium pick, eventually they're going to play, and there's always been that story where Godwin has beaten Jackson out for starting time, and you look at the flow of the offense with Winston being a little bit more comfortable with Godwin and Braid and Humphreys to a certain degree, you can definitely see that happening. So let's see. We need to address the O-line issues, absolutely. DeMar, the right side in this offseason definitely needs to be addressed. DeMar Dotson is a good player, but I think he's lost a step to a certain degree. He's also a player that's on the downside of his career with his age and also with knee issues. Yes, put Fitzpatrick back in, and Jackson will play. Well, look, if Jameis Winston is ineffective and he's costing your team wins and they feel like they want to have a spark with Ryan Fitzpatrick, then that may happen, but I don't see it going forward at this point. No running game is hurting us. Absolutely. Absolutely. The running game is hurting us. Thought Boye was with the Texans. No, Jacob, he is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. In fact, I saw a stat yesterday where that defense has really come under fire. They've had their own problems, and I believe they're over 70% completion percentage this year with their defensive backs, with quarterbacks throwing. What does that start? That starts up front. You have to get more pressure on the quarterback. It doesn't matter what corners you have. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed that last week. The Jacksonville Jaguars haven't done that consistently enough. And they were a number one defense. Still, statistically, they're still a top defense, just not getting it done this year. We need defense. Godwin to step up. OJ needs to step up. Brayton Evans. Jackson is not being utilized, period. Agree with that, Jose. We went into that. If you don't know what you're watching right now, live here in Countryside, I'm your host, Peter Blake, of the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on WTAN 106.1 FM and 1340 AM. Of course, we'll be live at Ferg's in St. Pete on Central Avenue, November 10th for the Sports Web Remote. We call it the evolution of sports talk radio. We give you your own walk-up music. We'll let you call in twice, and we don't hang up on you like those other sports talk shows do. So we'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll head out to the game. Trade for a solid corner or a high draft pick. That is the popular theory at this point. Jackson for Le'Veon Bell. Do the Pittsburgh Steelers need Desean Jackson? I'm not sure. Does Le'Veon Bell, do you want to take the chance of trying to sign Le'Veon Bell in the offseason? I'm not sure about that. Plus, I don't know how good of shape Bell is in. What has he been doing in the off time? Giving all the praise, but he ain't showing us nothing. Only reason I was a Bucs fan to support my brother. Bring down Matt Stafford. Stafford's not coming down here. Todd Monken stated in an interview that the O-line has improved. What film is he watching? Our run block is horrible. Agree, the run blocking is not very good at all. It's been one of the weaknesses. In fact, I looked at a statistic this week on Pro Football Focus that Ryan Jensen, who's been good in pass coverage, has not been very good in run, and it starts up front. both ends of football starts up front. Football 101, it starts up front with the offensive line and the defensive line. You have to get more penetration on both ends. Let's see. We need a legit running game. We can't be one-dimensional and blame Winston for everything. Agree with that. Bucs need to look at Mike Ledecky, him playing well in the preseason. I think that's certainly a possibility if this season goes south. Make no mistake about it. It is a must-win game today, ladies and gentlemen. You have to win. You can't afford to go 3-4, go on the road to the Carolina Panthers, and then maybe you're looking at 3-5 and the season could be lost. So you have to win today from here on out. Winston only has two options. He looks for Brayton Evans. He also looks for Adam Humphries, and he's looked for O.J. Howard. So come on. D-Jax to Oakland for Carl Joseph. I think that's certainly a possibility, especially with the propensity, SAT word, of Gruden liking veterans, liking speed, and then Carl Joseph being a young player that maybe the Buccaneers were interested in a couple years back playing the safety position. Definitely. Should the Bucs make a move for Bell from the Steelers, or is he now considered too disruptive in the locker room, I guess? I think he is somewhat disruptive. I mean, he hasn't even reported to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He doesn't have to. They're going to have to figure out how to pay him. On top of it, if you're going to trade for Bell, you have to figure out that you're going to make a commitment to sign him. He wants some big-time money. Will the Buccaneer organization be able to provide that? I'm not sure. Receivers running wrong routes is not all on Winston. I agree with you. Bucs need a running game. Absolutely. Jackson isn't a team-first guy. He never has been. When the last time you've seen Jackson lay out for a pass, absolutely agree with that. When Jackson was signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was one of the factors. Even though he brings that explosive nature to him, he also brings the explosive attitude to him also. I believe Chris Godwin is worth playing for a full 40 minutes. I think the Buccaneers are going to explore every opportunity to get Chris Godwin the ball because he is your future at this point. Come to Atlanta, we'll make you a star. I don't know about that. I think Atlanta is pretty good. If you're talking about me, I'm here in Tampa, so come and get me. Let's see. Belmore drama, absolutely no Bell. 38-28 Bucs over Cincy. Desean to the Patriots. What will the Patriots be giving up in return? You're not giving up guys. You're not going to give up a pick for Desean Jackson. That would be absolutely inexcusable. And if they did, then you would know that the Buccaneers have given up on this season altogether, in my opinion. How do we solve the kicking problems that have plagued us for the seasons now? Well, look, you had Cherylin Cantazero, who got a confidence boost. He kicked a 59-yard field goal last week, but he missed an extra point in 40 yards. So I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, I think you've got to block up front. I think you have to have a good long snapper. You got to have the good snap, and you have to have a kicker that gets out of his head. It's all between his ears at this point. Let's see. Trade Desean and Fitzpatrick. I don't know about that. What if Winston goes down? Are you confident in Ryan Griffin being your quarterback going forward? Nassib's going to cause chaos in Cincy backfield today, hopefully, absolutely. Trey Jackson for Peppers from the Browns. Not sure about that one. Raiders won't give you Joseph. I don't know what John Gruden's going to do. John Gruden just gave up Khalil Mack for 2 first-round picks, a premier pass rusher in his prime, a game wrecker, and he also gave up Amari Cooper, who's a 24-year-old star in my eyes, who you would not give up on. Landon Collins from the Giants is definitely a possibility. We talked about it on the Sports Web yesterday. Yeah, exactly. They traded Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. Let's see. Sign DJ Pumphrey for your run game. It starts up front. Doesn't matter who you sign. It has to be a commitment by that offensive line. Who should start? Jones, I think. What about you? Yeah, I think you're going to definitely have to get more production from Jones. The problem with starting Jones is, though, he has to know the pass protections. He has to understand that. Bring Richard Sherman to Tampa Bay. I don't think the 49ers are going to trade Richard Sherman to Tampa Bay for Desean Jackson. That doesn't seem like a John Lynch move to me. Let's see. Keep Desean, trade Jameis. We need an accurate quarterback. I agree Winston has to be accurate. He's not accurate deep, but he's accurate with short and intermediate. He has to get better. We talked about that. Jameis is your future. You're not going to trade a 25-year-old quarterback, if I can talk today. Let's see. Bobby Boucher, the water boy. That's funny. Don't blame him. Winston can't get him the ball because Winston throws to a space, not the person. That's why he needs a 6'7" receiver. So over Buck ball. Look, it's definitely a frustrating thing if you're a Bucs fan to watch him week after week miss deep passes. But again, this is one of the factors that he has to work on. He has to also work on the interceptions and the turnovers and the fumbles. But that also goes in the offensive line and also goes on your offensive coaching staff of trying to find ways to get Jackson the ball, to try to find ways where if you believe and you understand that Winston cannot throw deep, then maybe you take that out of your game and basically you change it up. You basically predicate your offense to what Jameis Winston's strengths are. That's great coaching. Let's see here. Has no chemistry with Jameis. Should have gone with Mariota. Lonnie, I'm not sure about that one. Mariota has been hurt, hasn't been able to play a full year, so I don't think that's the answer. Cardell Jones, we need him. Sycophants dissing Jameis need to remember he's still young and his stats are good as they've been over a comparable number of games. Desean Jackson traded the Bengals for a cornerback. Corey, why would you do that? The Bengals secondary has been god-awful this year. No. Foles, Bridgewater, you're going to have to give up picks to do it. If the organization feels like that's what they want to do, I don't see it. I don't see how you give up on a 24-year-old quarterback. So why don't Tampa Bay give Ryan Griffin more snaps? He throws better than Winston. I'm not sure about that yet. So in saying that, the response has been great on Bucs Report. This is why I've stayed on. Of course, if you don't know what you're watching the live pregame show from Countryside. I'm your host, Peter Blake, of the host of the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6, The Sports Web. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. We'll see you later. Guys, I'll be here live at the Tan Talk Sports Studios about 8 to 8:30 doing a post-game show from Bucs Report. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. Happy Sunday, and go Bucs.